And in the last episode, this was what the family got to see before they flew back home to Italy to leave me on the boat. A magical experience going across Tasman Bay with the dolphins. And not knowing really what to do with myself in many ways, after the family left, I decided to stock up and head out into the bay. I actually left at midnight and I was goose swinging, which means a sail on either side of the boat, in a full moon going through the Nelson Cut, and it was magic. That's Nelson, and I sailed through the cut, goose swinging just after midnight. It's freaking epic. These cameras never catch it. Well, it was a long but beautiful night. Got over to Abel just on daybreak, a quick Scott called family, and then around the eastern side of Abel Island where the wind was howling, and the wind was pretty vicious this year. Many times I was in this exact situation right here with the howling wind. But I did put up a stabiliser, more on that later, but that was the first time I'd ever put a stabiliser in, and it worked a treat. Meanwhile, got some friends out into the park. This is Al and his two boys, Henry and Arthur and Henry, and taking them fishing. It's really good to share this part of the world with as many people as possible, and they stayed with us for an overnight. They walked out into the park and basically camped on the boat. And then of course we took them back to drop them off at Apple Tree Bay, this one here, but there was some howling wind swirling around that point there. G'day Al, good man. But the point, it took us about an hour and a half to try and get the Al and the boys ashore there. It was quite the test, and in fact all of the zip ties that I'd temporarily put onto the lee cloths ripped off. This was a common situation, upturned dinghy. Good thing I don't have an outboard. All I've got to do is make sure the oars are stored correctly. And also the sunshade cloth here was getting a hammering. So spent the next day or two hand stitching with this new awl thing that I bought. One of the best tools to have on the boat if I can just keep the rust off it. But this was a little experiment learning to stitch, and it's way better than just the needle I used once before, that's for sure. But so that'll come in real handy in the future, I'm sure. I did a lot of stuff, reinforced the corners, and added a couple of ties, and I'm really glad I did it because this season was a bit of a blowy one. And of course the stabiliser. Now I'm a bit of a trade me fiend. That's in New Zealand, like eBay, our equivalent. And I once bought a Burke's Sea Drogue, just in case I ever got caught out in a storm and needed to tow something to slow me down. Never used it, and it's been sitting in the bilges for years and years and years, and I've just discovered a use for it. Sticking it over the side on the spinnaker pole, and once I realised how easy it was to do and the fantastic benefit, that's exactly what I do everywhere I was anchoring this year. Anyway, I thought I'd then go across to Pakawau. Pakawau is a small coastal village getting eaten away by the sea in Golden Bay, just south of Farewell Spit. A friend Lisa was going there with the boys, Arthur and Henry, and so there's Golden Bay there, that's Terracoa Harbour. Here's Pakawau. Now when I got there I was expecting it to be quite calm and flat because there was this huge high coming, but unfortunately it wasn't, and I had a very rough lunch there basically. Wasn't there long enough to put the stabiliser down, so a bit of rock and roll. Although actually I did try, didn't I? These are the fish farms in Golden Bay, keeping to the north of that north marker there. You wouldn't want to run into these at night. There's a lot of them about, and I've heard that it's anticipated to get even bigger, more and more of them all over the bloody place. They're going to actually increase the size of Terracoa Harbour in order to do it. But it was a wonderful sail there and back anyway, and a worthwhile exercise just to prove to myself that I couldn't get ashore at Pakawau. And then it was back to Abel Tasman National Park and playing with radio. Getting my Uber geek on. I bought this laptop, second hand, tough book. First thing I do is open up this WX and WX to image is just flash talk for weather satellite to imagery. It's a great program, and it's free at the moment too, developed by Kiwi. It tells me there's a satellite in 15 minutes. Satellite 15. So in order to listen to it, I need to turn my radio on, which is Radio Uno. SDR Uno, which is this little box here. It's a tiny little box with a USB cable and an antenna. Simple as. This is it. Opens one of these wonderful waterfall things. Turn the volume on. Press play. These are the different frequencies out there. That's the one I'm listening to right now. I've got these settings for people on Facebook and stuff. There's too much confusion. Wonderful resource, this stuff. SDR Play, SDR Uno. Lots of helpful advice. You can always ask stuff. It's almost as good as a school of YouTube. There we go. So that's working. And I got what, 14 minutes now. So we'll record, auto record, and that's all set to go. Now we just wait with the volume off, so people don't think you're a weirdo listening to static. And then of course there's the magic antenna, which I think is called a dipole, which was €80 from a guy in Poland, I think. Don't know how long it'll last, just aluminium, plastic. Be more the connection that'll fail probably. But basically the bottom cross is slightly bigger than the top cross, and the frequency is reflected off it, and it all comes in the top one. That's what I reckon anyway. And these waterfalls are interesting. They're only every, few megahertz, and they could interfere because I want to listen to that bit there, that narrow strip, and this is interrupting. It's all the same, which makes me wonder if it's something like an LED. Doesn't make much difference. What about this one? Can't think of any other power source on the boat. Oh, bilge pump. It's been doing that lately. So this SDR Uno stands for Software Defined Radio 1. And SDR is incredible. SDR is basically the computer is controlling the radio. What used to be a physical thing like the radio there, the VHF. The software can handle any frequency that that box down there will give it. So what is that? These ones here. They're very regular. Makes me think maybe it's another satellite interrupting or something, because they use the 137-ish frequencies. Anyway, we've got 5 minutes to go. Pressure's building. There's the first signs. We've still got a minute to go before this program takes over control of this radio and that frequency. Oh, hear the tone. Basically these NOAA satellites are about 800 k's up and they're doing 7 kilometers a second, and as they pass over, this frequency changes as it's coming towards you as it changes to its going away. It's called the Doppler effect, the nina, 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 that kind of thing. So it's quite important that this program control the frequency for a better reception. It's quite complicated. Well, it's not really. It's quite simple. But there you go. You can see it's changing the frequency automatically. That's one program controlling another program through COM ports. It took me ages to figure that out, I tell you. And let's face it, you're probably wondering, why the heck am I showing you all this? Well, the main aim of what got me excited about this is for people who haven't seen any of my other playing with radio videos. It's because when you're out at sea, the internet isn't always available, and I don't want to have to rely on the internet because internet connections are expensive, whereas this is free. Once you've bought the SDR radio, got this free bit of software, the WX to image, and a couple of other softwares which I've paid something like $50 for. All of this weather weather information is available for free just by plucking it out of the airwaves. And that I find really exciting. These things are just receivers, they're not broadcasters, so I can't broadcast on any of these frequencies, I can only receive. But I mean, that's all I need. This will show me a satellite image of real weather above me, with me marked as a location on a map. It's incredibly powerful, lets me see over the horizon a very long way. So I've spent quite a bit of time trying to figure all this out. I've actually built my own antennas, three antennas I've built myself to try and do this. And the advantage of the SDR is you can also use it for other purposes, not just receiving these satellites which go over, about 5 or 6 times a day. but also the AIS. I've been using this to receive the AIS messages from ships and stuff that then put that on my chart. I can get the Met Service weather faxes from the SSBs. This was actually a bit of a poor reception, and all of those lines that I was moaning about before, I discovered what it was. It was my solar panel going into my MPPT solar controller, and all I had to do was disconnect it. And so it was the solar controller that was making those lines there. I ended up getting quite a few good ones while I was experimenting with this, and in fact, if I can find some, I'll show you. But meanwhile, we're getting onto the weather facts here. See, I can even get that right here. It's from the other side of the world, that one. The picture it produces is not much use. In fact, the other program I use is a C Rutty thing. If I just go start. So these ones are coming from Germany. We won't upset my system by listening to it for much longer. There's also this rutty stuff, which is, yeah, that rutty. There we go, this is the message. Frequencies that it's, no, it's a little bit messed up, but it is coming from Germany. And that gives weather situations on buoys all around the Atlantic. But anyway, this time we tuned into New Zealand. Bingo. That's what I'm talking about. Anyway, that's us there. These two peaks. Well, that looks pretty choice, doesn't it? A lot of good weather coming. I think it was a bit early to go over to Golden Bay. And now for my next trick. OpenCPN also works. And it knows where I am. There. You can see the track I did today, leaving from Bark Bay over to Pakawau and back to in here. I've also got the AIS working, but I can't tell because there's no boats out there. But I got it going because I could see two bright lights coming over the horizon, so I'll see if I can identify that later. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, 3 minutes for number 18, but we've still got a bit of this interference, but not quite as bad. Well, already it started recording, but we've got this interference thing still. Okay, so we'll call that a pass. So stop the noise. We're going to stop that. And now watch the processing. It's 10 o'clock. 10:59 anyway. Well, here's a funny thing. You know, I didn't really notice it when I was filming this, but when you speed it up, it looks weird, isn't it? This is perpetual motion on a boat. There's always these waves just coming in over a period of time, and because I've sped it up, like 400%, it's like a slight exaggeration, but you know what I mean. This happens. It's really weird, isn't it? Yeah, perpetual motion. The reason I left the volume up so you can actually hear these sounds is these are the sounds of weather facts for those people who have never actually heard them. Because once you've got an ear for them, you can pick them up quite easily on radio and know sort of what you're listening to. Anyway, back to the weather facts. Still looking good in New Zealand. You wouldn't want to be to the east though. Looks a bit gnarly down there. Here's a big one coming down. Now, after that little musical interlude, you're probably wondering, what the heck is he doing now? Well, basically, I spent most of the summer in Tasman Bay, this huge bay here. Went all the way over to Golden Bay, as you saw earlier on in the video. Most of the time I was just popping in and out, just where these yellow lines are. I was just sort of popping in and out of the bays and mucking about. Although at one stage I did head east because the boat needed some maintenance. and you can see I went over through Marlborough Sounds, into the Sounds a little bit, and over to Mana and back. So that's what I did. And just to get into a bit more detail for those who are interested why I would come and go up and down the bays, apart from the fact that it's bloody good fun, is my favourite spot at the moment is Tahuti Bay in the Tonga Island Marine Reserve. That bay right in there, it is beautiful. Sometimes you get a bit of a roll, but it's really beautiful, and you can't have your fish gear because it's a marine reserve. But you can just pop down the road into Bark Bay if it gets a little bit too rolly, but then Bark Bay gets rolly. See this corner here? That's where you can get fresh water. There's a tap a hose that comes out of a spring. Fantastic place to stop. Then just further south is Torrent Bay, where most people stay, and the anchorage there, but you can see those boat wakes. Woo, man, it's busy. So my favourite spot is here at Stillwell Bay, as I've said before, and Adele Island. And the reason for that is you've got bloody good internet. The internet reception there is great. Everywhere else in the park, unless you're well offshore, is really sketchy. And so I would constantly have to come down for work reasons and contacting the family and stuff like that, and then sneak out into the bay. And then here we are back in Tahuti, one of my favourite spaces for the sunset. Check it out.